Hello, everyone. So thank you for joining us today. My name is Melvin Pels. I work as Corporate Innovation Manager for the US branch of Choose Paris region. So I'm based out of San Francisco, hence the time for this event. I hope it's working for everyone. We'll try to stay within the little hour that we booked for this morning. Well, here is our agenda for today. After presenting some key figures about mobility, I will tell you more about some companies we have identified, and then we'll have we will have a fireside chat with Mitra Brumans and Pierre Maillot. And finally, we'll have presentation from a selection of innovative companies. So to start, a few words about Choose Paris region. So we are a catalyst for business and innovation, which partners with Fortune 500 corporations to support international companies willing to expand in the Paris region. So thanks to our presence in vibrant ecosystems like San Francisco, New York, Shenzhen, Shanghai, Beijing, and well, of course, Paris, we are able to scout over 4,000 companies every year. And this unique relationship with, large corporations on the one hand and fast-growing innovative companies on the other hand, led us to create the Global Open Innovation Network in 2017. So now it's been 3.5 years that we organize events like this and work with large corporations. So the idea is to organize, moving on. The idea is that we organize about 30 events a year to help large corporations and startups build business and technology partnerships. So we cover an array of technologies. We talk about artificial intelligence, biometrics, blockchain, and we focus on different sectors. So it can be mobility, but also retail, health, or energy. So today we will talk about mobility, and well, it's a bit special. We've done that a couple of times now, but this event will be online. Yeah, we hope you enjoy the format. We try to make it pretty interactive, so feel free to use the chat to ask questions. We'll use it throughout the event to interact with the speakers. So yeah, some key figures about mobility. First of all, it's important to know that 25% of CO2 emissions from human activities come from transportation. This is the figure for the US. So we cannot solve climate change without inventing the mobility of tomorrow. Second number, it's pretty interesting, is about people living in cities. So about 68% of people will be living in urban areas by 2050. Again, that's a very powerful trend. So it's important to have it in mind and think about how we can efficiently move goods and people today and tomorrow. The third number is to highlight how fast mobility has grown. So 10 years ago, when Uber started in 2009, mobility as a service was pretty marginal. And today, it keeps growing. Actually, it's growing at about 20% every year. And it's supposed to reach $1.3 trillion globally in 2024. So that's massive. Now a few trends that we have identified. So these are major trends in the mobility industry. If you're specialized, I won't teach you anything, but we see 4 big trends. The first one is connectivity, boosted by Internet of Things and 5G. Then we have autonomy that progressed a lot thanks to machine learning, especially. Then we see a lot of new business models around sharing, the sharing economy, and then another major trend, electrification. So in the top right corner, we have some figures about investments. because this sector is benefiting from a lot of public and private investment. And these figures from the McKinsey mobility report from last year shows us like the categories in which these investments are made. So the top categories are e-hailing, semiconductors, AV sensors, and everything related to connectivity and infotainment. And then in the bottom right corner, you have some interesting facts about autonomous vehicles, and we can see the impact it will have in the next few years on society. So we can see that it's going to improve safety for drivers. It's going to like have a positive impact on the prices of real estate by developing all the areas, like all the suburbs, and then some positive impact also on congestion. Well, by 2030, we estimate that autonomous vehicle will create about $800 billion of value. So this is really, really massive. So now we will show you some startups we have identified. Sorry, just going back. Yeah, so here are some interesting companies we have identified while preparing this event. So we can see how rich the ecosystem is, and this is not exhaustive at all. This is just a few interesting companies that we decided to present. If you're interested in one of the categories, feel free to reach out and we can talk about it more. So earlier I was talking about autonomy. Here we can see that 3 of the sections cover autonomy and autonomous technology. So this is pretty interesting. We also have the 3 other major trends I was mentioning: mobility as a service, with everything related to sharing, electrification, and connectivity. So within these 4 big areas, we see like very fast growth. Some companies have been growing really, really fast. Is the case of Canoo, for example, that you can see in the mobility as a service section. Canoo was created 3 years ago, and they are going public this year with a valuation of $2.4 billion. So this is pretty impressive. We also find some other trends. We have driving experience and everything related to the experience of users within the vehicle, reading their emotions, understanding what's happening within the car. Then we have hydrogen. It's only a few companies because hydrogen is growing pretty fast, and there's like a whole ecosystem that's being built around hydrogen technology. Then we have neo-mobility with different types of new ways to move around. There are some interesting startups working around Hyperloop technology, for example. And finally, urban air mobility. So from here, we will move on to the fireside chat. Yeah, I see some people are talking about teleoperation. That's true. There are some other things we didn't put in this market map. The idea was mostly to show some areas that were interesting for us, for our partners. But of course, this is not exhaustive, and there are some pretty big things happening in other areas of this. So yeah, without further ado, I'd like to move on to the fireside chat and invite Mitra and Pierre to join me. So hello, guys. Great. So how are you?
Hello, good morning, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Mitra, I think you're on mute. Wait, I'll just unmute you. Yeah, that should work now. Yeah, so hi guys. I thought maybe we can start with an introduction from each of you and to understand more your background. So Mitra, would you like to start? Oh, you're still on mute, I think. We cannot hear you.
Is this better?
Yeah, it's working now. Thank you.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Melvin, for having me here today. I'm an associate at Autotech Ventures. We're a venture capital firm focusing on ground transportation. We invest in startups that are solving some of the most pressing mobility challenges, which have to do with the transport of people and goods from point A to point B. We're early stage investors, investing in pre-seed to Series B startups. We also do some later stage investing, but it's very opportunistic. And we're based in Menlo Park, California.
Great, thanks. What about you, Pierre?
Yeah, so hi everyone. I'm working for Bosch. Probably you know Bosch as one big automotive player. We are actually supplying all car manufacturers in the world with different kind of equipment. Now looking also at leveraging the technology around the autonomous driving and connectivity to provide new solutions. My role within Bosch, I'm acting as a business development director for smart communities and smart cities. So specifically looking at urban mobility and trying to address some of the challenges of urbanization, traffic, security, densification with cities and real estate players.
Great, thank you. So yeah, in the introduction, I was talking about some big trends shaping mobility today. So we talk about connectivity, electrification, sharing. Sorry, I missed one. Connectivity, electrification, sharing, and autonomous. Sorry. Yeah. So are these the only big trend that you witness? Like, what are some other trends that you see happening and picking up? Can you tell us more about this?
Sure.
Yeah,
there's two other trends, mega trends that I would add to the list. One is shared vehicle use, and the other one is digitization of enterprise, which is using IT to streamline the operations of transportation corporations. And that can be anything, software related, that could help improve operations. An example would be using AI and ML powered software for visual inspection on the manufacturing line at a car OEM, or software that can help optimize packing and shipping of goods.
Mm-hmm.
Also, so you mentioned those other trends. Maybe I can speak a little bit about autonomy and Autotech Ventures view of that space, because it's very, very particular. So we do believe that autonomy is something that will be achieved in the long term, and it's very capital intensive. So what we've been doing is focusing on off-highway autonomy, which we see different as on-highway autonomy. For us, off-highway will be achieved, autonomy will be achieved in a shorter term, and it is a much less difficult problem to solve because of how controlled the environment is off highway. And so we've made a couple investments in those areas. One in a company called Verdant Robotic that creates robots for ag-tech robots that do picking and pruning of specialty crops. So this is one example of highway, and then another one is Safe AI, which is a startup focusing on autonomy for construction and mining sites.
Okay. Great. What about you, Pierre? Like, do you agree with this? Like, what are some
Yeah.
other trends you see?
No, I do agree. The only additional trend that we see at Bosch that I'd like to highlight is personalization. We believe that personalization, especially when we talk about sharing concepts, will increase the mobility experience and also enable additional mobility services. So whether you have personalization in your vehicle, personalization of your trip, or obviously services. However, what I like to add on top of that is obviously the impact of the COVID crisis to these mobility trends. Originally, the mobility market was setting into a path forward to get to level 4, 5 autonomous electric vehicle to move people from A to B. But COVID probably will have an impact on that path. And it may ultimately change where we are going. So for example, will public transportation option reach the same levels as when we are pre-COVID? A survey recently showed that 50% of the people using public transportation or ride-hailing services said they are less likely to use the service due to the COVID-19. So there is now a trend to get back to your vehicle, and with the additional flexibility regarding working from anywhere, it creates different kind of mobility patterns where people can stay at home or maybe use their vehicle at different time rather than driving at the peak time. So it might also have a big impact on how things are moving regarding mobility. So just to summarize this COVID impact that we see, we believe that there will be a shift in the model mix. It will be less shared, at least for now, and more micro mobility. There might be also a consolidation of a very overpopulated market of players. You saw your map that you presented earlier. There are so many players. It might be consolidated in the next few years. There might be also a refocusing of the edge technology adoption, especially regarding automated driving. We believe that it will be applied first in a controlled environment, so it's private street or parking garage, for example. And as Mitra pointed out, speed of digitalization of the ecosystem. A lot of people will be obviously digitalization their solution.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and I think that's really true for COVID. Indeed, it's having a big impact. Actually, has it changed a bit the way you look at startups, Mitra? Like, have you changed the way you invest or the way you look at startups?
Not really. We think, this is just temporary and things will come back to normal. So we've been looking at startups and investing. It hasn't fundamentally changed our focus.
But as Pierre was saying, a lot of people now are a bit reluctant to taking like a shared vehicle, so like Uber or Lyft. And well, actually, there are a lot of new models that emerged, and they are taking people away from car ownership. People are now sharing a car. They're gonna lease a car. They're gonna just pay a membership. So like, I think that Autotech Ventures has invested in some of these companies. So could you tell us more about these companies?
Yes. So in terms of shared vehicle usage, we focus on asset-light mobility services marketplaces that increase the utilization of underutilized assets. And what we mean by asset-light is when the companies, the startups we invested in, do not own any vehicles. So there's no vehicles on their books. And so an example of such a marketplace, asset-light marketplace, would be Outdoorsy. So Outdoorsy is what we call the Airbnb of RVs. So what they do is they enable RV owners who use their RV maybe a couple weeks, at most couple months a year to put that RV on the outdoorsy marketplace up for rent and enable people who do not own an RV to come and rent those for a limited period of time. And so, as I said, they're asset light and they enable higher utilization of existing assets for their owners. A similar company would be, I would say, a little different. We invested in a company called Bus.com, and what they do is they also help increase the utilization of underutilized assets, but they also help consolidate a very fragmented market of bus operators. And so what they do is they bring all these bus operators on their platform and help them get business for their buses and enable companies and peoples and events to book buses to get people from point A to point B for specific events. And then we also invested in a company called Sweeble, focused on emerging markets, and I would compare them to chariots. But as I said, for emerging markets and asset light, so they don't own any of the vans that they have, and they transport commuters, from where they live to their place of work, as well as students to their universities and schools. But they're focused on countries like Egypt or Pakistan, countries that have cities with very high population density, and where public transit are underdeveloped. So where not everyone can or wants to buy a car as well, and so that type of shared service fills a gap. And then lastly, we invested in a company called Drover, and what they do is they're offering car subscription to more consumers. So instead of going and buying a car, you can go on the Drover platform and subscribe to their service and get a car for a flexible amount of time for a set price. And what they do is they also don't own any of the cars that are available on their platform. What they do is they partner with car manufacturers, with dealerships, car rental company, fleet owners, and they provide an additional channel for all these folks to be able to monetize their cars and make them available for people for just to get a flexible, as I said, subscription to.
Thank you, Mitra. I see that we already get some questions, so that's great. Actually, I encourage people to already ask some questions. Otherwise, at the end, it's always hard to handle the time. But I think we'll keep the question from the audience after we have this chat, and then we can interact with the audience a bit more. So yeah, Mitra was mentioning how some cities are denser than others, and how the infrastructure is sometimes not very adapted. Well, actually, cities have been built decades ago, and some are not ready for the new types of mobility that we have to offer. So Pierre, I was curious about how Bosch is looking at this, and how you are making it work with the existing infrastructure and the new types of mobility.
Yeah, no, sure. So what I'd like to do is give you some example to illustrate, how this technology can create additional value and address some of these challenges. So I have two examples of solutions that we are currently deploying. One is leveraging autonomy and connectivity for parking. So the challenges for parking, especially when you build new things in cities which are already very dense, is that you are building a very expensive parking structure which bring no revenues, and that in the future, based on the mobility trend that we discussed, might not be needed, right? So you have like this stranded asset which will not be used. So you need to increase the density, and you need to create flexibility when you create now this parking structure. Another challenge is that the timeline for the autonomous vehicle adoption, as I mentioned, is still not very clear. There are still regulation obstacles. So the first application, as I mentioned, would be in private controlled environment. So what Bosch has developed is what we call the automated valet parking. So the idea of the solution is basically you are leveraging the entire vehicle connectivity and sensor infrastructure. And some of the vehicles that are on the market today already have what it needs to basically create this kind of like autonomous driving level 4. And we are upgrading then the parking garage infrastructure with connectivity and intelligent camera, which will be then taking over the driving and drive the car directly to a parking space without any human control. So the idea is that you drop your car at a drop-off zone and then use an app which basically will let the parking garage infrastructure take over and drive your car at the dedicated parking space. So there are huge benefits to this solution because you increase density, you can save space since you don't need to open the door anymore. You increase the security and safety. And for real estate player and cities, it basically also increased the potential reuse of this space in the future. The solution doesn't have any huge mechanical changes, unlike, for example, a lift system. So it's pretty elegant in that way. And you can also implement only a part of your parking garage like that, so it works in a mixed environment. So the idea is that this solution brings benefit, but it also has a financial rationale for the real estate developer. So there is value and financial benefit in implementing this solution. And on top of this, even if we all hope that this COVID-19 crisis will be over, for now, it creates additional concerns and challenges. That solution where you basically let your car being parked by yourself without any human interaction increase the health and well-being because it provides a touchless solution for a valet parking service. So that's one example where we are really using autonomy and connectivity to increase densities in city. The other one is around electrification and charging station. We know that owning an electric car, there is always a concern about the range, about the availability of a charging station. It's very complex. The user experience of charging your car, paying for it, is quite cumbersome. And we know, studies show that the drivers of electric cars, they have an average 6 recharging apps on their phone, and they can have up to 5 different recharging access cards. So it's really complicated and not very user-friendly to own a car and to have this easiness like we do with a normal combustion engine to basically move around. So price transparency is also an issue, especially in market where the energy price is fluctuating. So sometimes you charge your car and it's very opaque. You don't know how much you pay and the price breakdown. So Bosch has developed a smart recharging solution with location-related services. And the idea is that all these different charging stations can be consolidated into one single interface, either through a Bosch app, or we have also some partner who provide a similar information. And today we launched that solution in Europe. We hope we can also bring it to the US, but in Europe it has 150,000 charging spots in 16 European countries that you can find on the app, hopefully 200,000 by the end of the year. So the idea is really to provide a very simple and smooth experience for the electric car driver. You increase your peace of mind where you are looking for a charging station, and a price transparency as well as ease of payment, since all the payment can be integrated into the app. We want to bring additional convenience for charging in the future by integrating that into the infotainment of the car. so that when you are navigating somewhere with additional AI services and deep learning, you can basically really get to the best recommended route in terms of navigation based on your range of the vehicle, based on the price, based on the service that you want to have. So it's really trying to overcome the hurdle of this infrastructure and very segregated infrastructure for electric charging station to make electric driving more convenient and easier.
Yeah, actually, I want to bounce back on that because I've seen some questions about what type of what is infotainment and what kind of thing can you offer people within the vehicle. So Pierre, you talked about some targeted information about where people can go, etc. Like, what are some other things you've seen?
Yeah, so infotainment, I mean, as I mentioned also at the beginning, we believe that the car will become more and more personalized. So when you get into your car, you basically, I mean, whether it's you or your wife getting in the car will basically adjust all the settings and the servicing. And then as far as infotainment is concerned, then when you navigate to some place, the idea is really to optimize the route based on all the different data that the car will be collecting. It can be data regarding the powertrain, but it will be also data regarding your own personal preferences or your wish. You want to stop on the route on a restaurant which has Wi-Fi, you can put that as an additional feature, and then it will provide the best route. It will also look constantly as how much consumption of your battery is occurring. It will also, we have a battery in the cloud solution, which basically also work on how you improve the battery longevity based on your driving performance and based on like how much you need to charge it so that you don't, overuse the battery. So all these services are integrated to make your experience more valuable and create, or at least reduce the value depreciation of your vehicle.
Someone was talking about Electrobits. Do you know this company, Pierre? And do you know if Bosch is looking at the same direction?
I personally do not know them,
okay.
But I would be interested to know more about them.
I'll send you the info afterwards. Yeah. Well, I'd like to come back with you, Mitra, and I think some people were interested in that on core ownership. And I was curious about like, if you think this trend is gonna last, like, are we really going away from core ownership, and like, how is this? How it is evolving, and how manufacturers and core dealers are handling this? Because you cannot. I mean, you have to encourage people to buy cars. I can imagine. So, what are some incentives or ways people are doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, in the past, decade, we've seen an increase in adoption of new mobility services, and at the same time, we've seen car sales growth decrease. We're still selling car, but it's the growth is slower and slower. Things have a little bit changed with COVID. Where now people, I think, are more open to buying cars because they don't want to share a ride with people who might be sick.
Yeah.
But overall, in the long term, we think that people will keep buying cars. Cars. Car dealerships are not going to disappear over time or at all, but they want a more flexible ownership model where company like Drovers come in with those flexible subscription models, and I think many OEMs will start working with Drover and companies like Drover, and also some of them have started offering their own subscription services. And so there's an opportunity there, but they're still trying to figure out what the best ways to go about selling their cars in this new environment with all these mobility services. And for instance, Jaguar Land Rover just launched a car as a subscription service, a few months ago. But at the same time, Mercedes-Benz, who had launched one 2 years ago, announced that they're stopping providing that type of service. But anyway, we think that people will still buy a car. We think that the car buying experience will change, and people are, getting more and more used to buying things online, and car sales will increase online, and they will receive a, Tesla, a Mazda-like experience, car sale experience. And so we're looking at companies that can help car dealerships, provide that experience to their customers. So we've invested in a company called Digital Motors that does exactly that. They enable car dealers to be able to transact online on their own website. So if you want to buy a car, you can go on their website, and it is all from just browsing and eventually end up buying your car online. And they also do a very good job at making sure that there's a good transition between offline and online experience for people who still do want to go in the car dealership and make a purchase. So create a seamless online, offline experience as well.
That's another step in digitalization. That's very interesting. And one last thing before we move on to the questions. In the introduction, I was talking about e-hailing. So this is more related to like transportation of goods. What are some other trends you witnessed, Pierre, for like moving like things around, moving goods? Like I'm sure there is some autonomous things happening. Like, can you tell us more about what you witnessed?
Yeah, it's true. When we talk about mobility, we first always think about mobility of people, but the movement of goods will become as important as movement of people in the future. And actually, in the short term, there are lower obstacles in good traveling while people traveling in a post-COVID-19 world. Especially, we saw already before COVID, there was a steady increase in e-commerce and goods consumption. Now with COVID, it's basically this trend is even more significant, and I believe it will stay. People will now get used to basically buy things online, so it will create an even more a bigger challenge in how we address goods delivery. Autonomous driving, especially on highway, will become very important, especially when we have trucks doing like long distance driving, and the autonomous vehicle and the additional safety which comes to us will become very, very important. Last mile delivery is also a major opportunity to reduce emissions, reduce congestion, and a way to utilize real-time connectivity data. We've seen here in the Bay Area some pilot testing of autonomous delivery robots for this last mile delivery. We are talking about also using drones for delivery. So there are a lot of technology now which are addressed specifically to the movement of goods, and I believe that will be also a very exciting and promising market where a lot of things will be happening.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you both. We don't have like much time, so I'll take just one or two questions from the audience. I have an interesting one from Chris, who is asking, well, there are a lot of like tech and sensors being developed, and like, do you think these tech and sensors can be integrated into existing vehicles, or this is only building future vehicles? Like, how is the market dealing with that? There are a lot of like, things can be like plugged in existing vehicles, or
maybe I can take this one. I mean, it's both. I think for sophisticated sensors which are required for autonomous driving, whether it's like a LiDAR or camera or sensor, you need to have them, I believe, integrated elegantly in the car at the beginning if you want to make your car price competitive. But when we talk about creating additional use case on connectivity, with a simple use case of geolocalization of your fleet or your bus, these are sensors, these are devices that you can plug in after to create this additional use case. So they are depending on what you want to do, depending on the use case you want to achieve, there are different ways. But obviously, retrofitting sensor on vehicles is obviously something that is happening now. Maybe not to the extent of developing autonomous driving, except for the car that you see on the road, which have all these cameras all around that are testing purpose car.
Great. Well, we have more questions, but I think we have to stop here to save some time for the presentation. We have some very interesting companies who are presenting today. So I'd just like to say thank you, Pierre and Mitra, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure people can add you on LinkedIn. Some people were interested in reaching out. So yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Maillot. Thank you, Mitra.
Thank you, Pierre. Thank you, Maillot.
All right. So I'll invite our first presenter, Jeremy, CEO of Evo Power, to present. Yes. Hi, Jeremy.
Okay, so you can hear me now, right?
We can hear you, and yeah,
you can see me too, which is
share
also.
your screen. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to share a screen because I'm going to be doing a demonstration. As you can tell, I'm in a car. So different type of demonstration today, but we're going to do a wonderful one, which is wireless charging for electric vehicles. So let's get started. In Mexico, I got displaced because of the pandemic in Brooklyn, so I came back home to New Mexico to make sure my mother was home. Here we have the resonant technology. So our resonant E8 system, and you're able to hear me okay, is that correct? I just want to make sure before I move on.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah,
you can see the screen perfectly okay?
Yeah, we can see the charger.
Okay, great. So here we've got our resonant E8 technology. This is our introductory product that we're bringing into market this year. It is a wireless charging electric vehicle technology and product. As you'll see, it has a software along with the hardware that enables the entire system to work and really improves the user experience. What you see here, that black pad is our power pad. That can be either surface mounted the way you see it now, or you can be flush mounted into the street, seamless like a manhole cover. It is UL rated, so we have gone through the UL certification for it and have completed that just recently. And also a few other important points about it is that we do have it in standard matte black, which looks really wonderful in asphalt, but also can come in different colors as required. So I'm going to move forward here. And as I move forward, you'll see that we have the power station, which is this white enclosure, and it's on a tower, which we call the pole mount. Here at this location, we've got this set up on a 240-volt single-phase 50-amp connection, which makes it a 7.2 kilowatt charging system at this location, but it is rated for 8 kilowatts in terms of, again, our introductory system. We have faster charging systems that we are working to bring into market soon. This system in the enclosure has the wireless charging equipment responsible for creating the wireless charging. Also, it comes complete, fully networked with GPS, LTE, 4G, Wi-Fi, and Ethernet. It does have a certified revenue grade energy meter, which means You can legally retail power from this system, but certainly you can account watt by watt of energy that's coming in, which is really important for our analytics. Finally, this system here is built as a hybrid. We are the only hybrid plug-in and wireless charging technology in the world. So underneath this power station, there is a connector here to add a plug-in charger. You can have type 1, level 2, type 2, many keys for Europe, or even CCS. So we offer those options to customers so that they can have both plug-in and wireless all uniquely in one location. Here we've got the Nissan Leaf. It's not the most wonderful looking vehicle in the world, but hey, they give it a good shot. As you can see, I've got the motor trunk open, which in a lot of cars today is the frunk. But in the Nissan Leaf, this is where they house all their electric motors and all the equipment for the motoring. But also you can see this back there, and that's the inverter that's responsible for really converting AC or DC from these plugs. Here's a DC fast charge and the AC charger into the 400 volt DC nominal output value that battery requires. Our wireless battery adapter actually is located discreetly in the centerfold, and this it's nested in as a black enclosure with the yellow cable coming off of it. And we are a DC charger to the vehicle, so when somebody uses our system, they're actually DC charging the car, and they're using the, at least initially, because we're a retrofit system today, we're using the existing DC protocol in the vehicle to charge the car. But we do have several automakers and several ones.
It's getting hard to hear you, Jeremy.
Is it? I'm sorry, that's hard to hear me. Okay.
No,
did you fully lose me?
Say that
again? Did you fully lose me?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's terrible. Well, let's just go through the actual user experience, and then we'll close with that and open up for questions.
Perfect.
It's a wireless charging system that's both plug-in and wireless together. And so I'm going to open up our app. I'm going to tap on my screen here. So when I open up my app, you can see it lands you on the map. It tells you that there's a station here, and then it also lets you know there's 2 stations. So if I tap on that location, it then gives me some quick information about the location name. Also tells me it's wireless, that it's the Hevo network. There's DC charging at 6.2 and 7.2 kilowatts. I'm going to tap the one that's named Cedar Cottage. So I tap that, and now it tells me to find the station. So on the front of the power station, there is an LED display behind that front cover, and it's illuminating the same number, so I know I'm arriving at the right location. And as I start to pull forward, which I'm going to actually do now, you see that this automatically goes into parking alignment. So as I'm pulling forward over that power pad, it automatically aligns my vehicle and helps me to align my vehicle, I should say, accurately. This can be done with autonomous vehicles, no problem. And so you can see even I'm accurately aligned 100%. So I'm going to put the vehicle in park. I turn the vehicle off, I hit that start charging, and there's a reminder, hey, you got to turn your vehicle off. But in the future, you can drive and charge at the same time with wireless charging, which is really nice. So now we're charging, and you can see from my app here that there is a state of charge of 30% on this vehicle. You can remotely check that state of charge anywhere in the world with our technology, which is almost impossible to do with plug-in charging. You can see that we have already charged for about 30 seconds. There's a couple of key information points there, how much power is being delivered to the vehicle, how much amps are being delivered to the vehicle. There's a dynamic percentage showing how much percentage of battery percentage you gain. I'm going to tap here. When I tap there, it's going to tell me how much time I have remaining to a full charge. If I had a reservation, it would tell me how much time I have remaining on the reservation. And again, on this dynamically, we're showing miles or kilometers gained. We're showing other important details like how much you're paying while you're charging. So I've got this location hooked up to the price of our kilowatt hours. And that tells me how much I'm going to be paying while I'm charging. And it can be used also in public location too. Finally, there's a efficiency meter on the far side, and that's showing our end-to-end efficiency. And as you can see, we're like 89, 90, 91% efficient. And that's incredible considering this is wireless charging. So it's end-to-end efficiency, and it gives us about 2 to 5% better efficiency than plug-in charging. I want to go ahead and end there and take questions.
Great. Thank you, Jeremy. That's a great demo. We have a question. Actually, I want to go pretty fast. We have a question from Oliver, who is asking, what's your view on the wireless charging market? How mature it is, like where is it at? And who are the major players among automakers and utilities?
Well, we're a major player, that's for sure. We're the only company in the world that is UL certified, SAE qualified, ISO certifications. We've got manufacturing set up in Austin, Texas. So it's at an automotive grade facility. Our manufacturing partner is Flextronics, one of the 2 biggest contract manufacturers in the world. We operate as a tier 1, so we are one of the major ones. The other competitors in the space of wireless charging, we don't see anybody yet commercializing the technology. Not that they won't, they will. But we have major automakers that we're working with. There's 4 major ones that we're working with, actually 2 in Europe, 1 in Asia, and 1 in the US. The 2 that are in Europe are moving very, very fast in the wireless, and we see them putting wireless charging on their vehicles as a standard product starting in 2023, 2024. Until then, we have several major contracts and customers around the world, and we've got several hundred units of purchase orders in backlog already.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Jeremy. I think we're going to move on to the next company. Thank you very much for the demonstration.
My pleasure.
So next company is G Batteries. So I'm going to invite Tim first to present. So I'll make you a presenter. Yes, I can see you here, Tim. Okay, you should be able to share your screen now.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, can you see my screen? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Awesome, great. Yes, thanks everyone. I'm Tim from G Batteries, and as you might have guessed, I'm here to talk to you today about batteries. So, today, as we all know, the world is ruled by the internal combustion vehicle. And so, unfortunately, this is our reality. Thankfully, everyone is, working together to make this our clean, bright future through mainly electrification of our transportation fleets. And, we're well on our way there. However, at the core electrification are batteries. And batteries still have a few key obstacles that remain. Many are, well on their way to being solved, like cost, life, and range. However, charging speed is still a key issue. And that issue comes back to the battery itself. So what you see here is a cycle life chart of a battery. So vertically, that's capacity. Horizontally, that's cycle life. And when you charge and discharge a battery, that counts as one cycle. And typically, most batteries get somewhere between 600 to 800 cycles, plus or minus a few. And so what you see here is a very typical cycle life chart of a battery cell. When it reaches 80% capacity, it's considered to be at the end of its life. And what happens is the faster you charge a battery, the faster it degrades. So as you can see with this red line here, if you would start to charge the exact same battery much faster, you would severely decrease its lifespan. And so what we've developed is a solution to this issue without changing battery chemistry or manufacturing process. So our technology is a combination of software and hardware that's monitoring what's happening in the battery in real time, and then adapting in real time based on various signatures that it detects. The end result is that we're able to charge the battery very quickly without compromising its cycle life. As you can see here in the green line, we can charge the same battery much faster, again, without decreasing its lifespan. And though I don't have a great live demo like Jeremy had, I have the next best thing, which is a recorded demo. So this here is a demonstration that we had made on an electric Xiaomi scooter. We added on a fast charging port to be able to increase the current going into the battery pack. Right there's a demo unit from our lab that the scooter's been placed upon. And the conventional charging time of this is about 5 hours. And we charged it in just under 10 minutes. And this is, again, without compromising the battery cycle life. And what we're working on today is scaling to much larger battery packs. So next is going to be an electric vehicle. That's it for me. Thanks a lot for listening, and happy to answer any questions if anyone has them.
Thank you, Tim. So let's see, we have questions. Yes, we have questions. So we have a question from Daniel, who's asking how the ultra-fast charging is impacting the battery lifetime, but I feel like you kind of answered this question. Right, you were saying that you have a longer lifetime for the battery, even though you're charging like very fast. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what our technology is focused on. So with our technology, we're able to reduce the amount of irreversible chemistry that happens during charging. So we can charge a battery very quickly, again, without severely decreasing its cycle life.
Great. Then we have another question from May, who's saying that the capacity to charge an electric battery faster for more miles would be a major improvement for electric car users. So this is where you're trying to move, you said. What are obstacles you are encountering in implementing a technology that is so awaited for on the electric car market?
It's really just an engineering challenge to be able to fast charge a very large battery pack at very high currents. And so it's just, resource intensive process where we're currently working on a project with a few different partners on implementation of our technology inside of an electric vehicle. So it's just, all the engineering challenges that come into play with, fast charging these very high capacity and large battery packs.
Mm-hmm. And then someone is asking, what are the challenges to scale and support charging? Like, are you working on partnerships to implement this technology? Like, what is happening regarding this? Like, for example, are you working on partnership with manufacturers, or are you engineering your own solutions?
Absolutely. So we are working with automotive manufacturers. Those are the companies that would have to implement our technology inside of their vehicles in order for them to be able to charge quickly. In terms of charging infrastructure, we don't need to make any changes to the infrastructure as long as the car is able to charge from a fast enough power source. There needs to be it won't be able to fast charge from a 50 kilowatt charging station, for example, right? You need something like 300 kilowatts or more, depending, of course, on the size of the battery pack.
Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of related to this question, but May is asking another question about trucks. Like, do you think you might move into this segment also?
Trucks? Are we talking about like 18-wheelers?
Yes, like hauling.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a possibility, but I think first we need to scale to a passenger size vehicle, and then go to the much bigger vehicles. But that's definitely on the roadmap. It's just after passenger vehicles.
For sure. Well, we have a lot of questions. Just like one last question, I think that's pretty easy. Someone is asking, where are you based?
Yeah, we're based in Ottawa, Canada, here on the East Coast.
Perfect. Well, unfortunately, we have to stop here. Thank you very much, Tim. And I'm sure people can reach out and we can put you in touch for everyone who's interested.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks a lot for having me today.
Thank you. So next up, we have Tom, who's CTO of Next Future Transportation. So I'd like to invite you to join me, Tom.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Sorry, I can hear you. Let me make you a presenter. Perfect.
Okay.
You should be able to share the screen now.
Let me know when you see the screen.
Yeah, you can see it now.
Okay. So as you can see here, we think that self-driving cars and electric vehicles are not enough, because the main reason why there is traffic and there is crowded pollution of the city, even in this COVID time, it's the usage of the car. So the fact that each single person is taking a single car to go to work, especially now. So what we are doing is creating something with these technologies, electric mobility and self-driving sensors and technology, to create something completely new. That it's actually a modular bus, a modular vehicle. This kind of modular vehicle, as you can see in this slide, it can actually be a wild car of transportation. So it can act like a private car or a taxi. But if you need more capacity, you can dock another vehicle to it, and so you can use it as a minibus. On the other hand, you can even join more units, so you can use it like a traditional bus, 12-meter bus, or you can join even more and more units that, depending on the legislation, you can use it as a tram. You can even use this vehicle for goods transportation and not just for people transportation. And another very important thing is that you can use them for transshipment. So when the vehicles are connected together, as you can see here, the doors in between can be closed, stay closed to, for example, separate the two pods for safety or health reason, but they can also open. When they open, they create a bus connection on the go, so without stopping the vehicles, without jumping out and jumping in again. So you can just walk from one vehicle to the other. This can create a lot of advantages. So instead of having the typical traffic of 5 seats passenger vehicles with just one person inside, or underutilized buses, you can have always a very high density inside the vehicles. And of course, they are useful also in this COVID-19 situation, because even if you put just one passenger inside each unit, mind that the unit can fit up to 10 people inside and 10 passengers inside, 6 people sitting and 4 people standing. Even if you put just one person inside, you see here from this graph that compared to traditional cars with one person inside, you can reduce the traffic footprint by 60% just because of the short form factor. In fact, these vehicles, they have the powertrain underneath on the bottom part of it, so the cabin can be very, very large. And so this allows us to have a vehicle that it's long just 2.5 meters, roughly, like the length of a smart car, but they can fit inside 10 persons. So even if you put just, in this case, 4 persons in 4 vehicles, your traffic footprint is much, much less. Let me show you a recorded demo of the vehicles that we built. So we first sold our first 2 functioning prototypes to the city of Dubai a couple of years ago. The first frame was that one. This is the new vehicle that we are testing in Padua, in Italy, where we have the R&D and manufacturing facility. This is the docking in motion. This is the most interesting part of the technology. And this is a virtual reality simulation that we use to do the user experience testing to understand if the people inside they understand clearly how to deal with this transshipment without stopping. You see here in a fair how you can use the virtual reality set, and you see here how the vehicle that was empty detached from the back of the convoy. Again, this is flexible not only because you see this, it can rotate on itself, it's very flexible in terms of dynamics, but it's especially flexible in terms of usage and in terms of what you can do with it depending on the time of the day and on the demand pattern. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, that was great to see a bit more. I think it helped a lot of people understand, because I was getting a question that you answered with the demo. There are still some questions though. We have Anand, who is asking if the next modules are autonomous and how they are individually charged.
Yes, I mean, they are, let's say, autonomous ready, because they already have all the sensors to be autonomous. But since it's not legal anywhere in the world at the moment, only on a few very small areas, we don't want to focus that much on that. We want to focus on the modularity of it. The self-driving technology at the moment, it's mainly used for the distribution and the docking of the fleet. So for example, if you have a fleet, a traditional bus fleet, today you have fixed length buses. If you have our vehicles, you can park each unit in a very large parking space for traditional cars, because these vehicles will fit on a traditional parking space for regular cars. If you want a bus at that time, the redistribution of the vehicles and the docking of the vehicles before going to the public road, it's full autonomous. But when you go to the public road, at least for now, you need to have a driver in the front unit. So for the moment, let's say the docking and undocking of the vehicles needs to happen in specific places where it's allowed to do it. But anyway, the decrease of the number of operators and drivers, it's huge. It's massive. Actually, in New York University studied our algorithm to redistribute the fleet, and it's basically 60% less number of drivers to move the same amount of people, like Uber or taxi service.
And what about charging? Like how are the pods charged?
They have two types of charging. Let's say the traditional charging system or the battery swap system, because maybe here in this image you can see a little bit in the bottom part of the drivetrain, you have two slots, basically two drawers, and you can take out the battery and put a new charged battery inside within a few minutes, a couple of minutes. We tried even manually with a transpallet. You can take out the battery and put a new battery inside, so you can without the technology that we just saw, recharge the batteries very slowly to increase the battery life.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Tom. We had a lot of questions, so I'm sure you'll get in touch with people who are really interested. So yeah, now last but not least, I'd like to invite Tarek, CEO of WaveSense, to join me. So hi Tarek, are you here?
I am, yes. Let me just share my my screen here.
Perfect.
Oops.
Some people were asking if the webinar will be recorded. So yes, we will share it on YouTube after, so you'll be able to see all these presentations again.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
I will.
Tarek.
Great, and can you hear me over audio?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'll try to be quick here since I probably stand between a lot of the participants and lunchtime. So thanks everyone for bearing with us here. So WaveSense is the world's most precise and reliable vehicle positioning system. And sorry, let me turn on video here as well. And that's sort of the best way to think about what we're doing. So it's sort of like a GPS on steroids. And what that means is that it's unlocking a lot of different and previously very challenging types of features, whether that's on the passenger vehicle side or on the autonomous vehicle side. So let me go to the next page here. What we've realized when we started this company that was candidly begun to unroll features for level 4 and level 5 vehicles was actually there's a much bigger market in passenger vehicles for things like autonomous valet parking, which our friend from Bosch touched on earlier, off-road features for some of the vehicle platforms here in the U.S., and much more active lane keeping. So let me sort of give you a quick sense of how positioning is done today. And then we can talk about why what WaveSense does is different. Traditionally, you have LiDAR, camera, and GPS as your 3 principal sensors for doing positioning. GPS is not typically considered a main sensor for high precision, given how coarse it is and the reliability issues that I think everyone is probably familiar with simply by trying to walk to a coffee shop and looking on their phone at the blue dot in a city and it's jumping around 50 meters or so. So you typically are using LiDAR and camera to generate a position. And the way that that happens is by mapping the world around you. So imaging things like trees, signs, buildings, and then trying to track to that subsequently. And the challenge there is sort of 3 conditions that have to be satisfied nearly all the time to do that reliably. One is that you have to have features to begin with, so feature density. You can't be on an open area where there aren't any trees or signs or buildings. 2 is they've got to be differentiated. So we can think about the parking garage as a good example where you have a lot of the OEMs struggling mightily because everything looks the same there. It's column 10 meters, column 10 meters, and so on. And then you need the map to be static over time. So one of the major challenges with map-based localization is that the surface will change in subtle and not subtle ways. And so the time to reflect reality is quite low. And you have to constantly have a cost of maintaining the map. And so what WaveSense has done, and hopefully everyone's got the bandwidth to see this through, is rather than looking around, we've invented something called a ground penetrating radar that images the subsurface about 10 feet into the ground, 3 meters into the ground, getting reflections off of things like changes in soil type and soil density, roots, rocks, cavities, rebar, concrete. What that does is give you a map, and this is real data you're looking at here on the bottom, a map that is very rich in features. Those are always differentiated, and it's static over very long time periods. And so you're able to do positioning regardless of what's going on the surface. And that includes snow, that includes poor lane markings, some of the current lane keeping systems struggle on. That includes things like areas without any features. And you can sort of see here on the left mapping when it's clear out, and then in the middle of a snowstorm here on the right, and you can see the error kind of the bottom center right. And what that's showing you, it looks kind of cool because there's snow on the ground, and there is another company that can do this. But ultimately, to the WaveSense sensor, it just looks exactly the same, and that's why it's able to generate that type of positioning accuracy. Okay, so where we're working today, there's a lot of work with the OEMs on automated parking. I think this has been identified as a major value proposition to customers. We have a very different approach to Bosch, and our OEM partners have a different approach to Bosch. So it's not infrastructure based. This is simply mapping a garage and then tracking to it. And in that case, we're typically seeing about 3 centimeter level accuracy. There's lane keeping, which I mentioned, and then there's off-road work as well, which is really about trail creation. We're working with 3 of the top 5 automakers right now. Those are some of the biggest customers, as well as some of the tier ones to complement them. And we're also and the business model we're driving, is selling the hardware via the tier ones, and then creating and licensing the map and the software to the automakers. Our board is and advisors consist of former president of Ford Motor Company, Joe Hinrichs, Chuck Stevens, who is the CFO at GM until recently, and then the CTO at Conti until recently, currently in mid. So we brought a lot of automotive expertise to help put wind in our sails as we build this business. Let me hit pause there and see if there are any questions.
Thank you, Tarek. Yeah, so let's look at questions. Yeah, okay. So we have Bob who's asking, would your solution work in unmapped environments?
It doesn't do localization in unmapped environments or SLAM. You have to map it first, and so we're taking the approach of mapping highways, parking garages, cities, and so similar to like Super Cruise, if you're familiar with that platform, and then licensing that map.
And another question about the data you're collecting from the ground. Do you plan on like monetizing this data for like government or cities or insurance, things like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are two ways to monetize it. One is for doing road condition monitoring, so wet, snow, ice, that sort of thing. And then two is that you're actually imaging the subsurface, so you're creating high definition utility infrastructure maps. And so we have a lot of interest from utilities, municipalities, departments of transportation, who are asking us to map their infrastructure where they actually don't know where it is, and there's a lot of costs associated with hitting that infrastructure when you're digging it up. We're trying to maintain it.
Mm-hmm. Great. And I had a question personally. I was curious to know if the sensitivity was influenced by, you mentioned rain, for example, like is the moisture of the ground like an issue in the way you map it, or like if there are some changes in the ground, like how can you adapt to this?
Sure, yeah, the resolution is intentionally coarse, and so you're not typically seeing seasonal changes in the subsurface. What you are seeing is if there's utility construction, you'd have to update that.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much, Tarek. I think we're like out of time. So thank you to you. Thank you to all the speakers. And I just like to finish with some information about our next event. So let me. Perfect. Yeah, so that was our mobility event. We'll do a similar event next month to talk about clean tech and all technology taking us towards a sustainable future. So I'll make sure to share the link with everyone who participated today. And again, the event you just attended has been recorded and will be shared on YouTube. So you'll get access to all this information. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. And here are some contact information if you want to know more about the market map I presented, or if you would like to get in touch with some of the startups who presented. Thank you.